Hello and welcome. My name is Nick Lyle and I'm the lead trainer at Waterloo Hydrogeologic. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at the basic PHREEQC functionality using the demo project in AquaChem. If you'd like a video on how to set up PHREEQC in AquaChem, we already have one on our channel. I would check the Waterloo Hydrogeologic YouTube channel. So as with previous PHREEQC videos, this video is not intended to be a tutorial on PHREEQC or aqueous geochemistry. Unfortunately, I don't have nearly the amount of time for that, but if you'd like more information about that, I would check the PHREEQC documentation, and as well, I've left a list of common aqueous geochemistry reference works in the description. So if you want to follow this tutorial step by step, as I said, I'm going to be using a slightly modified version of the AquaChem demo project. So from the AquaChem start screen, you can select Install Demo Project. So in addition to that, I've also made some slight modifications to it. I'll go over those when they're important, but I've added a station. This step is not so important, and I've also added a sample. In this video, we're going to go through two different simulations. In the first simulation, we're going to simulate the mixing of two different samples. We'll simulate the mixing, and then we'll re-import the results. So that's PHREEQC simulation back into the AquaChem database. And in the second simulation, we'll simulate the evaporation of this precipitation in PHREEQC using the AquaChem PHREEQC GUI, and then again re-import that sample back into the database. Before I jump off and go into these simulations, I'd like to talk a bit about the prereqs for using PHREEQC in AquaChem. So first, PHREEQC must actually be installed, and AquaChem must know where it is. So if you go to Project, AquaChem Settings, and select PHREEQC, you should see under PHREEQC Executable that this is pointing to PHREEQC.exe. Secondly, for this project, I need to actually specify a thermodynamic database. So if I select Project Properties and select PHREEQC, we can see that we've got the PHREEQC.dat thermodynamic database, and I've done some mapping of the AquaChem parameters to the parameters in this database. So for this first simulation, it's fine to just use the auto mapping, but for the second simulation, I actually made some changes to this parameter mapping, which I'll get into during the second simulation. With that out of the way, let's set up the PHREEQC simulation. You can access the PHREEQC simulation GUI by selecting Samples, Modeling, and PHREEQC Basic. This will open up the AquaChem PHREEQC GUI, and as you can see, it's divided into 5 different tabs. The first tab is the Simulation tab. In this tab, you'll import samples and define the simulation, as you might imagine. The second tab is the Thermodynamic Database. So here you can select from the different thermodynamic databases that you've imported for your project. As you can see, currently I've only got PHREEQC.dat. There's the Input tab. As you define a simulation in the Simulation tab, AquaChem will translate it into a PHREEQC input file, and you're able to read and edit it in this Input tab. And the Output and Results tabs, as you can imagine, show the results of the PHREEQC simulation. So I'll get this simulation set up. I said that I wanted to mix the samples MW207 and MW304. So I've selected Solutions, the Add Samples as Solutions button, and I'll select the All Stations group, MW207. I'll hit Select. It's added to the list. And MW304. Hit Select, and it's added to the list. Now to mix these together, I'll select Step 1. And under Step 1, you can see I've got a bunch of different options for different things in PHREEQC, different PHREEQC blocks that I can use to define things such as the initial conditions or to do forward modeling. So I want mixing, select Mix, and it's added under the Step 1 node. Now to mix these together, I'll select Add Phase twice here. So I've added 2 different solution IDs, and I want these to be the 2 solution IDs of the solutions I've imported. So I want to have ID 13 and 17. And in this case, I'm just going to mix them 50-50. So I want 0.5 parts from solution 13 and 0.5 parts from solution 17. So before I run this model, I just want to take a look at the input tab here. And we can see that everything that I've defined in the simulation tab has been translated by AquaChem into a PHREEQC input file. So we can see that we've got our two solutions helpfully labeled for us. And we also have this mix block. So now we're ready to run. I'll hit run, and I'm immediately able to see the results. So this table has 3 rows. We have 2 rows for our initial solutions, and we've got this 3rd row for the solution that resulted from the simulation. And we're able to review the chemistry of this just directly in this interface, but if we wanted to import this back into AquaChem, it's pretty simple. First, though, we need to select a station to re-import the sample into. So I'll just select MW2 by pressing this blue pin button, selecting MW2. And now I need to assign the station to the sample. So I'll select Assign Station to Selected Results. And it's been assigned. And now to re-import it, I'll select that I want it to be re-imported and select Save Results. So now when I hit Save, it'll tell me that one sample's been imported, and I'm done with this window. So an important thing to note is that PHREEQC simulations are not saved by AquaChem. So once you close this window, you lose everything that you haven't imported back into the database. So I'll hit Close, confirm that I want to close it, and once I refresh the sample list, you can see that the simulation has been added to the end, and I'm able to review the chemistry directly in the AquaChem interface. Let's move on to the second simulation. In this simulation, we're going to be following a PHREEQC example problem. This is example problem number 4. So I've got the PHREEQC documentation open, and we're looking at example number 4, which is simulating the evaporation of some rainwater collected from central Oklahoma. I've created this as a sample in the database. So you can see the sample chemistry right here. I just did this by manually adding it by pressing this Add New Sample button. And in the sample, I just manually added the different values for these different parameters. After I added it, I also had to make some mappings to the PHREEQC thermodynamic database. So if I were to click on Project, Properties, PHREEQC, I had to change some of these default mappings. Specifically, I had to map bicarbonate to carbon 4+. I mapped sulfate to sulfur 6+, nitrate to nitrogen 5+, and ammonium to nitrogen 3-. With that out of the way, we're able to start modeling now. So again, I'll select Samples, Modeling, PHREEQC Basic to open up the PHREEQC GUI. And to import our sample, again, I'll select Solutions, Add Samples, and I'll find the sample. Select and close. To actually simulate the evaporation of water, I'm going to do a procedure that involves me doing some manual edits in the Input tab. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a reaction block where I'll remove 90% of the water, which would be 900 grams or 49.95 moles. However, the reaction block in the AquaChem interface won't allow me to pick water as a phase, which will require me to make the edits in the Input tab. So to do this, I'll select Step 1, I'll select Reaction, and I'll just select some arbitrary phase, and I'll remove 49.95, so negative 49.95 moles of reactant added. Now in the Input tab, I will make my edits. In order to be able to do that, I need to hit Unlock Input here. And AquaChem will warn me that by doing this, I will not be able to make further changes in the simulation tab. So I'll hit yes, and I'll change the name of the alunite here to H2O. And we can see, again, that like AquaChem warned, I'm not able to use the simulation tab anymore. If I want to reconnect the input file with the simulation tab, I would need to hit this lock input button here, which would undo any of the changes that I made, but also allow me to use the input tab again. Now we're ready to run the model, so I'll hit run. We get our results pretty quickly, and we can see that, as expected, the activities of our different chemical species have increased by about 10 times. I'm going to import these results into the database. Again, first I need to pick a station. So I'll pick this precipitation station. This is a station that I just created manually. You can import it to any station. I'll assign this station to our results. I'll select our results and hit save. And the samples have now been imported into the database. I'm now done with the simulation, so I can hit close. And when I refresh the sample list, the sample's now at the bottom with all of its different chemistry. Now I can do some one-click modeling. So I'll go to the model tab here, and I can see that the saturation index for all the different minerals are still well below saturation. Finally, I just wanted to talk about sending samples to PHREEQCI. So AquaChem's PHREEQCI GUI is pretty lightweight. It has some of the most essential and most used PHREEQCI functions, but certainly not all of them. If you'd like to use your samples in the PHREEQCI GUI, doing so is pretty simple. So you can either create a sample set with all the samples that you want to send to PHREEQCI, or simply just select them. So maybe I'll just select these two. And to send these samples to PHREEQCI, I'll select Samples, Modeling, Send Samples to PHREEQCI, and I can use my selected samples. Hit OK. And after a second, I've got a PHREEQCI simulation with these two samples imported as solutions. That's everything that I have. Thank you all for your attention, and I hope this is very valuable for you.